Hello, hello, hello. Dr. Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist here. Going to give everyone a few minutes to begin to trickle in, and then I have a really awesome guest for you guys. So I don't want to wait too long before I bring her on, but I definitely want to make sure, hello everyone, that you guys are coming in and settling in. And I thank you all, as always, for joining me this morning. I love to spend time with you. And like I said, so I put up a call, I don't know, remember, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I asked who you guys wanted to see me go live with. I know a lot of us are taking the time and shifts in our schedules to make those connections that we've been wanting to make or dreaming of making, and having some really amazing conversations are coming out of this whole new world that we're living in for the time being. So when I asked you who you wanted me to have a chat with, it was quite an overwhelming response that I got across the board from many individuals, but one in particular. A lot of shout outs. I have been watching her work for quite some time. Best-selling author, complete visionary. Got my hands on her most recent book and am completely and in love. And I'm thanking the universe, actually, because I truly believe that her recent book was dropped in my lap at a time, given the past events of the past couple weeks on my end, that is so very needed. So the very elusive being that I am talking indirectly about is Glennon Doyle. So her newest book, Untamed. Woo. Awesome book. Those of you who read it, I'm sure you feel the same. Those of you who haven't, I cannot recommend it more. Like I said, just so much powerful content in this book. And reading it now, it's really just a beautiful experience for me. So I thank the universe for sending Glennon to this planet, but also for allowing us to connect today. So a lot of people who bought the book, beyond excited. Yes, I cannot wait. Give me a minute and let me see if I can check in and see if Glennon has joined us, and then see if we can grab her without further ado. I think she might be here now. All right.
Hello! We did it!
We did it!
Dr. Nicole, how the hell are ya?
How the hell are you, Glennon? So little truth be told, when I said the dream of piece of, people you dream of connecting with, you're one of them. So this is beyond an honor for me. I am so happy that you and grateful that you've decided to take the time to have a chat with me and my community. So thank you.
Me too. Thank you for trusting me with this beautiful community. I cannot think of a better way to spend this afternoon.
Of course.
How are you? How are you coping with this weird world?
Oh, I'm coping. How are you coping?
Sometimes I'm amazing and so hopeful. And that's usually the result of coffee.
Yeah, there you go. So coffee is a magic elixir in that.
Somehow, magically, around 11 a.m., I lose hope every day. So I wonder what that is.
I wonder. But in all seriousness, Glennon, I thank you. So when you ask me how I'm doing, a lot is coming up just in general in the world and in my own platform these days. So I forget when I got this book in the mail. I was in the middle of a launch, but something told me to pick up the book, even though my mind was telling me you're too busy to read. Something told me, no, pick up the book. It was calling to me. And as you can see, I'm almost done with it. And it is speaking to me. So thank you. And what I think is going to be helpful to talk about, because you talk about a concept in there that I talk about using a different language, but that I get questions about a lot. So you introduced something called a knowing. Talk to me about this knowing, because I am getting questions from community members. I question myself, this idea of gut instinct or intuition or this inner place where all these supposed good decisions come from. Typically not the place where most of us make our decisions. So I'm interested in kind of opening up the discussion, because that really touched me, that concept. I know that thus far, or up until the past couple of years, I was living outside of myself for so many external reasons and factors and people. So my journey of healing really has been coming back to my own inner knowing. And I know that's been a really big part of yours. So I was hoping we could talk a little bit about knowing in general, maybe knowing in the context of the life that we're knowing now externally, and
talk to me about knowing and what your journey has been. And
Okay, so when I figured out that I had no idea how the hell to know was when I was trying to decide what to do in the wake of my last marriage, my previous marriage, when I found out that some infidelity had gone down, and I was in shock for a while. And then when that shock wore off, it was time to figure out what to do. Like I had to, not only did I had to like recover from the trauma of that, but then I was a mother and I had to do something. And I didn't know what to do, and everybody had a different opinion about what I should do. You know, I'm in this very interesting world of like feminist and like Christian, which is like a very confusing Venn diagram.
I was going to say, how about what is the crossover there? What does that look like?
It's hard and beautiful, because you figure out pretty fast when your parts, and many people are in liminal spaces between overlapping identities, and it's kind of an amazing thing because you find out pretty fast that there's no right or wrong or good or bad or should or shouldn't, because each group will tell you that right or wrong is an opposite thing. So you figure out pretty fast that, oh, those aren't like pure ideas. Those are just culturally constructed, man-made ideas, right? Those are the like barking sheepdogs that keep the masses in the herd. So
big awareness there, Glennon. Big awareness even in that, because I do a lot of work with a lot of people, myself included, that we don't actually come to the awareness that those are just beliefs, that for a lot of us were passed on from somewhere else. We do own that as part of who we are on some level. So even that awareness, I commend, and I offer that is a first step, is coming to that separation, being able to say, okay, those are beliefs, they were constructed somewhere, and now I might get a choice that maybe I didn't have before.
And it's so freeing and beautiful, and also completely terrifying, because like we are all people who just like want to be free and want to be individuals, but then we're like, but also, can you just tell me what to do, because I'm scared. Right? So like figuring out that there's no Oz behind the curtain, like there's nobody who can tell me what's right or wrong, it was what, like, you know, a little awesome and disconcerting. And so I, for a while, just did the only thing I knew how to do to make any decision, which is that I just asked all my friends what they would do.
Perfectly understandable way to navigate that.
Even my most dumbass friends, okay, who never even know what they should do. I called them. I called everybody. What would you do? What would you do? What would you do? What would you do? And no offense to my dumbass friends, like they would call me the dumbass, so it's fine. But and then I remember, oh my God, Nicole, I read every single article that any expert on earth had ever written. You know, the child psychologists, the infidelity experts, the divorce experts, just everybody who had any sort of like official stamp that could tell me what to do. Then, Dr. Nicole, I will tell you that I took a lot of BuzzFeed quizzes, because that's what a
I'm quite sure they're empirically validated.
Okay. And then I found myself at 3 a.m. one morning, sitting on my bed, just shoveling half-baked Ben & Jerry's into my mouth, and
my favorite kind as well. My favorite kind as well.
Why do it? Why does anyone bother with any other kinds?
I don't.
Googling, what do I do if my husband is a cheater, but is also an amazing dad? Okay, so now I am at some sort of rock bottom where I am asking a bunch of trolls and bots what to do with my one wild and precious life. Okay, this is when I realized, I mean, I still read all the links, but I also for sure realized, okay, there is an issue here. Like, how have I completely lost touch with myself? Like, when was like the phone line disconnected between like here and here, you know? And when did I get to the point where I trust everyone else in the world. Literally everyone else in the world, right? Even 15-year-olds who are making BuzzFeed quizzes in their basements. Like, I trust them more than myself. And so right around those that time, my son Chase, I had a boy and two girls until they tell me different, and they were having friends over. And I peeked my head into the room and I said, is anybody hungry? Okay. Now, this is what happens next. The boys, okay, without taking their eyes off the television, they all say, yes, okay, in one way or another. So you see what has happened here, Dr. Nicole. They have heard a question. They have gone inside their bodies. They have said on the outside what they felt on the inside. So they have nailed this Q&A. Okay. Crushed.
Boys too, teenage ones at that. Who would have thunk?
But the wild thing is that the girls do something completely different, and I will never forget this because it is seared into my memory. It's like it happened in slow motion. So the girls they're silent at first, and then they all take their eyes off the television and they start looking at each other's faces. Okay, so they are looking at their friends' faces to find out if they themselves, inside their own bodies, are hungry. Okay, then somehow there's some kind of like mental silent telepathy going on, right? I don't know what the hell. And they somehow silently appoint a spokesgirl. Braided, freckled girl turns to me. She gathers the information, and then she turns to me and she says, no, thank you. We're fine. And I looked at them and thought, oh, that's a 10-year-old, or however the hell they are old. I don't know how old my kids are. They're like walking, but not in college yet. They're like in that spot. Okay. A 10-year-old girl who looks at her friend's face to find out if she's hungry becomes a 42-year-old who is Googling her life.
Yes. Right?
Like, we forget how to know when we learn how to please. Right? Because boys are, and this isn't like always true. Okay, I'm making just wild generalizations here. All right? But it's always true. Okay? So boys are taught to look inside themselves in moments of uncertainty, to look inside themselves, find the wisdom, find the answer, and say the answer on the outside. But little girls are trained in moments of uncertainty to look outside themselves. Not for like an inner knowing, not for wisdom, but for permission, for consensus, right? For approval. So right around that time where I kind of saw that crystallized in front of me and it all made sense to me, I decided, okay, I'm just going to have to do this thing where I try to return to myself, right? Which I freaking hated because it just all sounded so woo-woo, and I had zero woo-woo tolerance back then. Now, lots more, but had zero then. But it made sense to me that if my confusion was coming from living completely an exterior life, where I only listened to voices on the outside of me, that would make sense if that was drowning out whatever inner voice that I did have. And so it would also logically make sense, I had to use a lot of logic, that it would logically make sense that I would need to get very quiet to hear wherever this inside voice was coming, right? So I would send my kids to school and I would sit in my closet. And at first I made myself sit for 7 minutes a day.
Which might as well be an eternity. I mean, listeners out there, if anyone has ever tried to sit, I think if you have not, 7 minutes might seem like, 7 minutes, 1 minute. When I start with people, and talk about tuning in, sometimes it's a 1 minute conversation because a minute might as well be an hour. But I just want to relate to you. I had a really big pivotal moment myself where I was complaining to someone about all the requirements everyone in my life was putting on me, probably around a holiday time period. And the person looked very just directly at me, very calmly even, asked what might be a very understandable question, which was, Nicole, what do you want to do for whatever the plan or the day was? And Glennon, I was similar to you. I was dumbfounded. I didn't know. I had no idea. No one asked me that question. I never asked myself that question. I couldn't even fathom the route to finding the answer to that question. So I can totally relate to you. Then that was the first moment I realized that I was looking elsewhere. It took me some time to go on then that journey within, because I want to offer another aspect of this. A lot of us are looking outward. A lot of us are also endlessly distracted by our internal dialogues. And we think that that's our intuition speaking to us. However, it's not. The knowing that you and I are talking about is different. It comes from a deeper space. It has a different voice, if you will. I think you call it a nudge. And I really, really love that. But I offer that because a lot of us, some of us think, well, I am inside, I'm listening. But what I'm listening to is not that intuition. It's an endless stream of talking and dialoguing, and often very quite negative and unhelpful.
I mean, Nicole, the first time I got noise canceling headphones, when you were talking, I just thought of this. I was so depressed because I realized, like, Abby thought they would help me on airplanes, like, because I get so annoyed by everyone who says any words. And so I put them in and I realized, oh, these aren't going to help me because all of the noise that bothers me is inside. I need like brain canceling headphones.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why a lot of us can't even me saying sit for 1 minute instills the fear of God in a lot. Oh, I can't sit I was that person. I couldn't be alone. I structured and scheduled, whether with, social engagements or just things that I call it tinker or tick around my apartment, because sitting in silence was an absolute nightmare for me. And I think many others, because then I hear my mind, which never shuts off.
It's the snow globe. It's like we do whatever we can to keep the snow like shaken up, right? Just whatever it takes, because we don't want the snow to settle, because then that thing will be sitting inside. And it's funny that you said it brings the fear of God into people, because like whatever God is, like, I don't know, everyone uses different words to describe it. But like, if you think of it as truth, that's what's in the freaking stillness. That's why it's terrifying, right? Like, what's in the stillness is all of the things that we kind of haven't healed yet, all of the potential that we haven't tapped into yet, all of the like terror and beauty of being human, right? It's just, and
on some level, all this stuff we don't want to know. And I think sometimes it's counterintuitive, Glennon, because while some of this stuff, I'm going to use the word negative, even though I don't like, right? The hurt, the wounds, right? A lot of times we think intuitively that's what we might not want to know. Some of us don't want to know our power. Some of us don't want to know a future where I am creating and kind of receiving what I might not be sure I'm deserving of. So sometimes it's really confusing, because some of the things we don't want to know are, if you will, logically positive, or what someone might think is positive, but that's really scary for many of us.
Equally, I think. The potential, like the beauty. I mean, when I was drinking all the time, when I was a really, really, really sick alcoholic, I could never get still. First of all, because I had a lot of like shame and pain that I had caused people, but it was the beauty that I knew I was capable. Oh, are you there?
You're here.
It was like the possible power and potential and all of the things that I could do with my life if I wasn't so sick, if I was braver and healthier and all of that. I think it's equal parts, it's equal parts pain that we have to get over, and then it's also just all of the beautiful longing and imagination and all of that stuff that's inside of us that we don't even know, because we're so out here and here, right? I mean, I think of like what's inside of me as emotions, which took me way too many decades to figure out we're fine and we're not going to actually kill me dead. Okay. I'm still
figuring that out.
I think that's what addiction was for me. It was the terror that if I felt my feelings, that my feelings were this black hole that if I allowed myself to stick my foot in, I would disappear forever into the oblivion.
I want to thank you for putting that beautifully eloquent kind of sentence and wording and illustration together, because I think on a very deep level, and obviously observing this in my clients in my old practice and now like in the greater collective, on some deep level, that's exactly how I've always conceptualized it. We don't trust ourselves with making choices. We don't trust ourselves with solving problems. And most of us don't trust ourselves with our emotions. And again, this is of no fault of our caregivers' own, but those of us, many of us who were raised, by caregivers who weren't emotionally resilient, as far as I see it, we have an epidemic of we can't cope with our emotions as humans. And obviously, as society has evolved, we've been given many opportunities to find what for many of us is the numbing or the quick fix or the thing to do to distract from what's really going on a deeper level. But as far as I see it, we as adults, most of us all struggle with our emotions.
Yeah, because nobody taught us how to do it.
No one taught us.
Thanks
no one taught them, and then no one taught
shit.
them, and then no one taught them. It's just like the end product now. And what's beautiful, and that's why I kind of honor this time in the space that you and we get to all come onto this platform, is I'm seeing this as a catalyst for change. Now these are conversations that are happening to allow us to begin to break these generational patterns in a way that we weren't able to before.
It's just a total paradigm shift of being like, oh, being human is about being happy. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be grateful and happy. And like, I didn't know. I am telling you, Nicole, okay, when I went to my 5th AA meeting, I stood up and I was like finally feeling brave enough to speak. And I said, okay, hi, I'm Glennon, and I've been sober for 6 days, and I feel awful. And I am afraid that what's wrong with me was not the booze. It was beneath the booze, that it's actually me. It's something is deeply wrong with me, because it feels to me like everyone else has some secret to life that I don't have. Because it feels like it is harder to be human for me than it looks like it is for everyone else. Okay? And this woman sat down next to me, and I will never forget her face because she changed my life. I think she was like 180 years old. I don't know how old she was. She sat down next to me. She said, honey, I'm going to tell you something that someone told me in early recovery. And that is this. If there's any secret to life, it's just this. It's hard now, not because you're doing it wrong, but because you're finally doing it right. That being human is not just about feeling easy feelings. It's also about feeling hard feelings. But the thing is that all feelings are for feeling. Okay, I understand to someone like you, that sentence probably sounds insanely simple, but to me, it blew my freaking mind.
Oh, I'm going like this because I'm actually thinking about and wanting to then offer aloud all of the messages in opposition to that we get in our families even. So many family units even where only one feeling is acceptable, or there's a whole group of feelings that aren't acceptable, or nothing. So for my experience, nothing is really talked about except the latest thing that the fire we're putting out. So if it was stress, we would talk about it. If it was sadness, if it was anger, right? If it was anything else, we want it. So I wanted to wrap back in too, because I love the illustration thinking about men. And it's interesting because I think what is happening with, and again, not to gender or globalize or universalize, but I think that they have a barrier that's more internal about their feelings as well. Getting the message that whether or not it's in our family or culturally, kind of colored messages or gender, whatever it is, a lot of us are given a message that feelings aren't okay. And again, this is because...
And the boys, bless the boys' hearts. I know, I am a feminist. I know that there are many, many obstacles that women are facing. I'm fighting them every day. I understand how difficult it is to be a woman, and I wouldn't change places with a man for all the freaking money in the world. The way that their humanity is taken from them so early. I mean, we are tamed, we're not allowed to be angry. We're not allowed to be, they are tamed to, that they're only allowed to be angry. right? That any sort of vulnerability or tenderness or actual connection or talking about anything other than sports and money and the weather, like I cannot imagine how lonely it must be. I feel like all of the problems in the world will be solved when we once and for all undo toxic masculinity. Like it feels like it's at the crux of all of the threats that our nation is under and that our planet is under. Anyway, that's a separate thing. But I do really believe that if we could not worship pain, I don't worship pain anymore. Like if I can choose between joy and pain, I'm always going to choose joy. But there's this like necessary pain that's just love. It's just like the cost of living an open-hearted life. It's just being fully human without any escape things, you know? And that kind of pain is one of the reasons it's so sad that we don't teach people how to sit with it and just let it do its magic. Is I really think that it's part of the alchemy that makes us become the next version of human that we're supposed to be. Like if we are here to constantly become the truest, most beautiful next version of ourselves, that happens inside the fire of the pain of now, right? And so when we hit the easy buttons with all the things we do to get out of the pain, when we abandon ourselves that way, we miss all the transformation.
I thought that the chapter that I read in your book where you talked about that was really beautiful and really applicable for the now contextually. So I want to offer this message out there for those of us that are having feelings about, you know, the circumstances that are maybe unfolding in the personal lives. You know, maybe there's financial constraints coming up, everything that, you know, the whole context that the world that we're living in is, you know, kind of bringing up. I really want to reiterate the importance of feeling it, you know, of not just trying to soldier on or find the bright side. You know, I think it's just as important, especially when something very real is happening, when we're really feeling threatened or fearful, to also allow ourselves to have a space to honor that, because I think we're living contextually at a time where a lot is coming up for a lot of us because we're feeling unsafe, we're feeling insecure, maybe we're exposed to relationships more intimately or in more intimate quarters than we typically are. So a lot from those deeper recesses of us might be coming to a surface. So extending that awareness that there probably are things coming up emotionally for a lot of us listening out there, and finding the space in our worlds to just allow it to be and not to shut it away or, you know, on to the next thing, as so many of us typically do.
Just being. It's like the whole world has been thrown into early recovery right now. It's like the whole world has been locked in the closet for 7 minutes, which means something totally different than it did in middle school.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, and like getting over the idea that any of it should be fixed, right? That idea that our parents accidentally taught us that the second we feel pain, that it is to be fixed, instead of that it is to be felt. Because what I have found is that the more I allow myself to be brokenhearted, allow myself to be furious, allow myself to be fearful, cranky, hopeless, whatever the day brings, that stuff is tenderizer. Like that stuff, the hard feelings makes us softer. You know, I have never spent more time angry and brokenhearted than I have in the last 2 months. And I've also never felt more connected to humanity. I want the best for people more than I ever have. I went for a walk the other day. This man in our neighborhood's walking by the other side of the road. I'm like, hi! Abby goes, you can't stand that guy. I'm like, I do. I love him now. I love him now.
It helps us be more empathetic.
Yes.
A lot of times, so many of us are feeling lonely and disconnected, myself included, for quite some time in our relationships because we don't know ourselves and our feelings first. How can I bring feelings to be intimately connected with anyone, a friend, a family member, my partner, if I don't have an intimate relationship with my own feelings first? You know, and that translates into what we call empathy and the ability to relate to others. And even if I'm not having the same feeling in the given moment, I can remember a time where I did feel that. And that actually is what allows us to be connected to other. We are interpersonal creatures. We desire that. And that's why so many of us, in my opinion, are so unfulfilled when we're not feeling those connections, but we're just not able to. I know this was me. I was so cut off from my own emotions, yet I would point at all of my past partners, blaming them, right? You weren't able to be close enough to me. You didn't support me enough. You don't understand me, right? When really it's like, I don't understand me. I don't know how to support myself. I don't know what my feelings are. Wow, I just really put a tall order on all of you and blamed you for the demise when I wasn't doing my part.
Yeah. Like, how can we even say, I love you? Like, what does that even mean if we don't know the I? There has to be an I if we're going to say, like, I love you has to have two different people who know who they are, right? Mm-hmm. It would be so nice if someone taught us that before we were 45. I just, when I think about the things we learn in school and we don't learn this shit, do you know what I know? I know how to tell you all three versions of Roman columns. Oh. I learned that in 3rd grade. I learned all about ancient Egypt. Why didn't we learn how to grieve? Why didn't we learn that it was okay to be angry? Why did, I'm just so freshly obsessed with going back to the basics.
Yeah. Well, this brings us full circle, right? Because what we learned in school, so many of us, is relying on our thinking mind, on those cognitive, faculties that we all have as humans, but that is, in my opinion, is not the source of our humanness and our inner knowing. That's somewhere else. So all full circle, all of us, in my opinion, could spend a little less time up here or out here worrying about everyone else and a little more time in here. So whether or not that's, for those of you listening, 7 minutes in a closet, whether it's 1 minute, whether it's one moment where I just check in with myself. Where's my attention? Oh, I'm worrying about a problem that my daughter is having. Okay, well, let me just put my attention on myself. That's where the start point could be for those listening. But I agree with you. It is a journey home. It is about going back to basics, which for a lot of us involves first breaking other habits, breaking the habit of living outside of ourselves, of tuning in to other people, and of creating that space to turn inward. That is the journey, I think, of healing. That is the journey wherever you are on the life's timeline when you're, coming to this awareness. I have people in my community, teenagers, reaching out to me, and I have 70-some-year-olds reaching out to me. There's no late. It's just a matter of doing the work and gradually coming back home to ourselves, to our knowing. And I thank you for the force that you are in the world. I thank you for spending this time with all of us today. I saw a couple questions coming in about the name of the book. So it is named Untamed. I could not recommend it more. I am shouting it out, not because Glennon asked me, but because I am changed by this book. So anyone who has not picked it up, I know I was seeing a lot of us already have read it, have completed it, love it. So thank you, Glennon, for spending your time with us today. My heart is with you, and thank you. And I've been seeing you from afar, and this was quite an honor.
Same. And how fun. I just love you. I could talk to you all day.
Oh, I know. I was like, I'm just being sensitive to your schedule. I was like, I'm going to ask this, then we could talk about this. So I'm here if you ever want to chat again.
I do want to chat again.
I would love that. And I think I'm seeing some hearts, so it sounds like they would love it too.
Let's set it up. I loved this. I just want to know everything you know. So I'll show up here and do this.
Well, I love talking, so that's fine. That's fine. All right, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you again, Glennon. I will save this for anyone who is asking. This will go up and be up for 24 hours.
Mwah. Bye.